Hello, I am Brian Nutby, and we are about to have a conversation with Kristy Jackson. Kristy Jackson is a career singer-songwriter here in the Triad, most famous for her song Little Did You Know. She kissed a hero.
Little did she know she'd kissed a hero, though he'd always been one in her eyes. But when faced with certain death, he said a prayer and took a breath and led an army of true angels in us.
She's the executive director of Triad Musicians Matter, and she is also a part of a group called the Gate City Divas. We're going to get to know her a little bit and her music, so stay tuned for a conversation with Kristy Jackson.
So I've been crawling up on piano benches since I was 4 or 5 years old and just picking stuff out. And then I would, when I got a little older, I started studying artists that I liked. When I got to high school, I had fallen in love with Carole King and James Taylor and early Elton John and Jackson Browne and Billy Joel, and I am that old, yep. And those are my songwriting heroes. And then for musicians, I was looking at Rick Wakeman and Keith Emerson and Donald Fagen and then of course Elton John again. But I would just kind of study styles of who I liked. And so when I write for myself, it's not really a very defined style. It really depends on who I've been listening to lately. It'll go from straight up country to R&B and blues. And a lot of it people have heard, they say they hear a lot of Bruce Hornsby in some of the songs. They hear Donald Fagen chording, stylings. So it's a very schizophrenic style from what I understand. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. And so
It's yours.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's all mine, and I embrace it.
I could definitely hear the Billy Joel in there.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment.
Yeah, he kind of combines that, just like you. He kind of combines all those different styles of blues and a little bit of doo-wop.
Mm-hmm. He does. Yeah, you're right. He does. He does. And he actually wrote probably one of my absolutely all-time favorite songs, And So It Goes. I think that's one of the most amazing songs. I just think that's an awesome, just a beautifully written tune. And it's, and it's complete simplicity. I love it,
So did you always know that this was exactly what you wanted to do from when you were little?
I didn't know I had a choice. I mean, when you wake up, the first thing you think of is music or singing or writing, or, I think you kind of know those things when you are growing up. Now, what I didn't know is that you can make a living at it. Now that was new. Now, of course, that's gone again. But back in the 80s, 90s, and probably 90s was the last decade that songwriters could actually make a living writing music, because you had physical hard copy. You had CDs and you had cassettes, and your royalties were based on those hard copy sales. And they weren't a lot of money. At the most, if you wrote an entire song and you published that entire song all by yourself, the most you could ever get was 9 cents a record. That's it. And that's governed by the Copyright Board. So that's not anything we can ever negotiate. I could have 50,000 number one records, and I can never renegotiate that 9 cents a record, because it's got, like, it's I can't remember the year of it. I want to say 1904, but that seems way too early, but it could be. But it's one of the only occupations that our salary is determined by a copyright board that is way behind the times. And then, of course, when streaming came and downloading came, it really desecrated the songwriting community, because then your royalties were percentages of a penny. And so, and I mean, I should show you some of my royalty checks. They're really quite humorous. They're like, 0.78 cents. And I knew I would have to figure out some kind of a plan B when I guess it was, I don't know, maybe in my mid-50s, I got my royalty statement, and it said songs in your catalog, which meant songs that other people had recorded along with songs that I had recorded because I had put out 5 independent records. But songs in my catalog had gotten over 250,000 plays in this quarter on Pandora, which is a streaming platform. But you'd think 250,000 plays, that's a pretty healthy amount. My royalty was $5.83.
Oh my God.
You have to get about 1 million streams these days before you can make $75. So it's rough. The reality of it is you can't make a living writing songs. I am one of probably the last lucky decade because I had the most successful cut of my career in the 90s with Reba McEntire. And that was like the last really decade that you could make money doing songs. It's really difficult now. You have to be able to tour, you have to be able to promote, and it even got to be a joke where it wasn't the music business anymore, it was the t-shirt business, because you make such a paltry amount on music, but if you can sell a $20 t-shirt, ka-ching! So yeah, I switched gears in my 50s and actually got certified in medical billing and coding, and went to work as front desk and patient coordinator for an outpatient substance abuse for 7 years. And then I did music on the side. And actually that was kind of nice because then I wasn't mad at music anymore because I didn't feel under pressure. And at the time, for personal reasons, I couldn't tour. So I couldn't do house concerts or anything. So it actually brought the joy back of music into my life, because then I wasn't, stressing out that I couldn't make a living at it anymore. I couldn't pay my bills anymore. And it was really stressful. So with getting that job, it was great, because then pressure was off. I ended up, I didn't know I wanted to go in substance abuse. It turned out I adore that field. I really, really liked it a lot. And so then, like I said, then I could pick and choose. If a gig came up, I'd do it, and I wasn't like trying to, do the whole self-promotion thing of being an independent musician. I'm not very good at. Like, I could toot your horn and go, oh my God, Brian is awesome, blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to like going, oh, me, and listen to me, and buy me, and me,
branding yourself.
But it's not a lot of fun, and it really doesn't come natural to me. I'm very uncomfortable in that realm. I'd rather somebody else do it. But of course, most independent musicians, we don't have enough money to buy get a manager or anything. So right. Everybody's out there promoting themselves. And I just got tired of that too. So it was really a blessing that this kind of reality set in. And I took this, little diversion on with outpatient substance abuse. And like I said, it was great. And now I enjoy music again, because I'm not stressed out about it so much,
What drew you into that realm, outpatient substance abuse?
Well, I'd gotten my national certification in billing and coding, and then actually 2 musicians who are friends of mine, they actually owned this, it's a mental health outpatient substance abuse company in Greensboro, and they have an office in Wilmington, they have an office in Reedsville. It's called Triad Behavioral Resources. And they were looking at expanding, and I was, starting to look around for a job, just doing billing, any kind of, coding. And so I ended up landing at front desk, which to me was really it was awesome. I loved it because I got to see people come in really as shells, just as shells of people, and you would look in their eyes, and there was no one home. And then within weeks, of therapy, we do medication assisted treatment, and then we taper them off of that once they learn kind of coping tools through therapy. And and I could watch these shells of a people turn into people, the people that who they were supposed to be if the addiction hadn't taken over their brain. And so I really did. I just loved it. The only reason I did not go back recently, we went telemed, as you can, when COVID hit. But when they phased back in June, I decided it was not very safe for me to come back, as not only where we would always do drug testing, but our owners decided they would start doing COVID testing for not only patients, but the general public. And between my age and then my husband, who has Parkinson's and some other underlying conditions, I just did not feel like it was a good fit anymore. And so we parted ways, and it was, I mean, it was totally amicable. I hate it. I miss it, but I wasn't comfortable, at that exposure of risk, anymore. So now I'm back to 100% music.
And how
Which
is that
real
going?
interesting. It's just crazy.
How is that going now for you?
It goes fine. I just, of course, no one can gig. The gigs are very few and far between because no one's having a lot of outings. I can't really travel anyway. I'm kind of, I need to be here for the most part. But what I am doing, and I found it I thought I would just do it maybe once or twice just to, because so many people started doing concerts online, live concerts. Well, I can't even do live concerts because I could be interrupted, like that. So I decided, well, I'll just record a song and throw it on Facebook every Wednesday. And it has turned into such therapy for me. I don't know if anyone else likes it, but I'm having a blast because I didn't realize how isolated I felt. And when, all of a sudden I'm getting feedback, oh, I love that song, oh, that lyric, blah, blah, blah. And it was so rewarding. And like I said, it made me, number one, realize how isolated I had felt. And it was just lovely, kind of dipping my toe back into live performing again, even though there was one song, but I just felt like everybody's so busy and trying to figure it out. I didn't want to do a whole show. And like I said, I figured I would, my chances are I might get interrupted anyway. So I figured I'll just do little Wednesday 4-minute sound bites, And it's great. It makes me practice. It makes me get on the piano. It makes me practice old repertoire, and practice old songs and charts, and it's really been good for me. And of course, that feedback I get on Facebook has been so nice and so, supportive, and it's really been cool. I've really enjoyed it.
Now, are you writing new songs for for the Wednesdays, or are these old songs?
A little bit of both. The last song I wrote, truthfully, was in April, and it was called Together Apart, and it was about just my life now, and this was I think I wrote it a week after the stay-at-home orders when we went into complete lockdown, and that's been tough. And then, but I don't think I've written anything since. I feel something coming. I used to be, when I'd all of a sudden I'd kind of get in kind of dark moods. And when I was younger, I used to run from them. I used to start cleaning house. I used to start cooking. I used to do something to kind of push them away. And now in my old age and wisdom, I'm finding that those dark moments and those dark feelings, that's usually when a song is coming. And if you'll ever listen to a lot of my repertoire, I write a lot of sad songs. But that's my outlet, So if I'm really troubled about something, that's usually when a song is kind of coming. But I used to, I usually write, songwriters write the best songs when they write what they know. And so lately, until, everything subsided, it was elections and this and that. And I was either angry, frustrated, or, and so it wouldn't have been a very nice song. Crazy. But I don't know. I think I'm getting ready. Plus now we've moved and we're settling in, and I feel like the doors are opening again for my heart, for my head, and so I think that we'll have some new songs down the road.
Right. I wanted to go into this Solitary Castle. That was kind of was this one you had written recently? Because this is one you were talking about when you had just moved.
Oh, I know. That's true. But actually, the song was written years ago. And I think I even prefaced when I wrote it, I had pitched it in Nashville, and they said, oh, I don't think anybody can relate to that lyric, because it was basically about a woman who was stuck in a loveless marriage, and they were just kind of playing the parts, but they were just, it was just sadly empty. And anyway, and so they were like, I don't think anybody can relate to that lyric. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I know gobs of people. So it was, yeah, it was written a while ago. And I was playing a lot of tennis and a lot of, I mean, I'm not down on women who play tennis by any means. But a lot of the women, you know, I think at least that I played tennis with, that was kind of their outlet, you know. And they weren't, some of them were not necessarily in happy marriages, but they were in marriages. That's it. You know, and so that's kind of where that song came from.
And I mean, you have what, about 50% of the population is divorced, right? Or
I mean, let's be real. I mean,
50%
yeah.
of marriages end in divorce. That's what I wanted to say. So I don't know where they got that it wasn't connecting with anybody.
But it, you know, I mean, there are a lot of people that are in, you know, just they're in marriages, but they're not necessarily happy. You know, so that's kind of what I was writing about, is that, you know, these marriages that you just exist in, but you don't really thrive in them, you know. And it's not just women, it's guys too. They're stuck in these marriages that they're just like, wah, wah, you know, and neither one of them are thriving. It's just kind of sad, you know. Like I said, I write a lot of sad songs.
Well, you do, but I think that one, like so many other, that one had connected very well.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that's not your situation, but.
No, that is not my situation. No, but I mean, kind of empathize, I guess.
No, I mean, you know, exactly.
And
I think a lot of people.
You have a good way of kind of painting that picture, and you point out things that are you paint the picture very well. You kind of put in there, I'm trying to find the word, and I'm thinking of I can't think of this song right now, but I'm thinking of the 93 song, the United 93 song about 9/11.
Right.
And I'm thinking you pick up things that are very, you know, she picked out his tie. You know, she kissed him for the last time. Like, you pick out things that are just very everyday, but you paint that picture very well with just,
Thank you.
Just these everyday things that are, you're just like, oh, and you paint that picture, and I like that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I try to. I mean, I just think about if I can get into the singer's head, you know, then I can get into their heart, and then the story just kind of writes itself, you know, how it would progress. So that's what I found. That's where my psych degree comes in handy.
And I guess since I brought it up, tell me about how you came up with. You said you were driving, and you heard the phone calls that they were playing on the United 93 song.
Oh, that was horrible. Yeah, that was I guess it was 2 weekends after 9/11, because it was like September 23rd or 26th. Anyway, I was driving to Nashville, and that's when, yeah, they started airing all the phone calls, you know, and it was just heartbreaking. I mean, I just couldn't imagine. I mean, these people started their day like my husband and I started ours, you know, just a completely ordinary day, expecting the day to be completely ordinary, and it was completely extraordinary. And so I used to commute to Nashville. I would spend a week out of every month in Nashville writing and co-writing. I had a place down there. And so the whole drive down, you know, I'm listening to these news reports and listening to these just heart-wrenching phone calls. And I remember getting to Nashville, and I went to church that morning with my 2 roommates, and they were having a tribute to military, and they were playing all the military music, and all the Army guys would, you know, stand up for their song, and all the Navy guys would stand up. And it just, I mean, my heart was just so full and so broken and so sad. And I hadn't really been alone since 9/11 happened. I had been previously teaching at Guilford Tech in their entertainment technology department. And so I had teaching, and I had my kids, and I had a husband. And so here I'm on the road, and I'm finally getting a chance to process this. So when I went to church that morning, I mean, I think I just imploded. I mean, it was just hard. And I went home that day, and went down my, to my basement, because that's where my part of my apartment was. And my other two roommates went back to church. They were going to go to some, I'm not sure if it was a Bible study or whatever. And I just didn't feel like it. I said, nah, I really don't feel good. And I didn't. I just felt like, oh, just almost nauseous. And I just started thinking, and like I said, if I can get into someone's heart, the song will write itself. And it did. And it was written in 45 minutes. It was done. And I was bawling the whole freaking time. I mean, it was just such an expression and such an outlet, and it was my way of grieving. I hadn't had time to grieve the whole nine. I just hadn't had time to grieve any of it. And boy, I was grieving then, because I was a mess. But the song came out, and it was sweet, and it made me cry, and I wanted to get it recorded while I was down there, and I didn't have any recording gear in my apartment, so I called a friend of mine who does, Cliff Goldmacher, who's a dear buddy of mine, and he said, come on over and we'll put it down. And I said, okay, because I really want to get it down while I can think about it, So we did it in one take. I barely made it through that take. And Cliff was so sweet, because I said, hey, listen, how much do I owe you for the session, And he said, if you make the engineer cry, it's on the house. And I looked, and he was just, so both of us are now bawling our eyes out. It was very sweet. But yeah, so we recorded it, and that ended up being what got on the radio. It was just a work tape. It wasn't, we didn't put strings on it. We didn't polish it. We didn't produce it. It was just a keyboard vocal one take just to get it down. But for whatever reason, that's what radio responded to. And that's, and then, as you probably read the story, it just blew up, and it took off on its own. It was crazy.
It was the number one requested song
on the largest radio stations in New York and other major markets, for that matter, after 9/11. It was just nuts. And we then I had a girlfriend suggest, you might ought to manufacture some CDs in case people want one. And I'm like, what? And she said, you mean that? No, they might want one. So I literally pressed a CD, and it had just title, songwriter, blah, blah, in print. That was it. No liner notes, no cover. And orders started coming in. And so then I started, okay, well, I'll sign them. That's the only thing I can do. I'll sign them. So I started signing them, and we would have times at the dinner table where my youngest son at the time would slide him over. I'd sign him, and they'd close it. He'd slide him over. I'd sign. It was nuts. So then we decided we would go ahead and manufacture one with a cover and liner notes and the lyric inside and stuff. And it just exploded. And it was just that. I mean, it was an amazing, emotional, very honorable journey. I met a lot of first responders. That's when I developed such a heart for firefighters, because I met these guys that saw things that I wouldn't wish on anybody. I'll get weepy just thinking about it. But it was tough. It was hard. It was really hard. But we talk to this day. I've got friends for life up in New York and Jersey that we still talk. I get one guy. If I don't get an email from him first thing in the morning on 9/11, I start worrying, but he's like, hey, it's Dennis. I'm sure you expected it. It's the way I start every 9/11. I've listened to your song. I've cried. I've prayed. And I thought about you and wanted you to know. And I get stuff like that all the time. It's just like, wow, how sweet. And we got emails and emails and emails. Amazing. I don't know what it was. I don't know if people just didn't. I remember one email just said, you gave me permission to cry. And I was like, wow. And I think that's what a couple DJs said. They said, you know what? We issue a tissue alert every time we put the song on, but it gives people permission to cry, because it's terribly sad, and they needed to, and they didn't. And so they just bawl their eyeballs out when they hear the song. So, but it's been an amazing amazing journey. It really has. Whew.
Yeah, and you raised $30,000 for firefighter charities.
I did. I did. I think we sent 10,000 to the Beamer Foundation, 10,000 to the Twin Towers Fund, and then 10,000 to, I think it was the General 9/11 Fund. But it was amazing, and I can't tell you how many I gave away. Then the other thing I did was I got a lot of obvious calls for performances to come and perform the song after 9/11. And my deal was I wouldn't charge a performance fee. If they could get me there, then I'd play, and I wouldn't charge a fee. So, and that was really cool too. I met a lot of sweet people that way. So it's been an amazing ride. It really has, and still is to this day. Just amazing.
I like that you gave people permission to cry. That's amazing.
Gave me permission to cry. Jeez almighty. I mean, it was just, when you hold it in, because you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to feel. You don't know whether to get angry. You don't know whether to hurt. And then when you simplify it into the simplicity of a man and his wife just said goodbye one morning and their lives changed forever, and then it became real. Then it became real. And I think maybe that's what impacted other people. I don't know.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Now we can talk about something positive. I'm so sorry.
We're gonna end up crying probably. Do you have when you write? Do you have a particular process for writing? Do you have do you start with the lyrics first, or do you just kind of play around with some tunes? How does that go for you?
It's different every time. Sometimes I'll be riding in my car and I'll think of a hook or a line of a song or something, or an idea of a song, and then the lyric will come. And then there are other times that I'll just be noodling around on the piano and I'll go, oh, I like that groove, and I'll record that and tape it and kind of play around with it for later. But yeah, it's completely random. I don't have a set way to, there's no set way it comes out, at least not for me. Just kind of whatever strikes me as inspirational at the time, I've tried to be more, I start with lyric probably more than I start with music, if I had to pick one or the other. Just because, if you don't have an idea, you kind of, kind of stuck.
I'm sure you have loads of ideas just written down all over the place.
Oh yeah, and some of them are really bad. They will never see the light of day. But yeah, some of them will go on to go be in a song at some point, but some of them I'll read a few days later and go, good God, what was I thinking? That's ridiculous. So such is writing,
I think everybody kind of does that though.
Oh yeah, you just, and it's hard too. And I tell young songwriters, because they get so caught up with it. It's like, try not to edit yourself yet. Don't do it yet. Just free form. Just write your idea, write your song, just a stream of all your ideas that you're thinking of like this song, this idea. Don't edit, don't worry about rhyming, don't do any of that. Just get it out. Then you can mold it later. But if but I've done it to myself. I've written down 4 lines and then just went, well, that's ridiculous. And then just put it to bed. And it might have turned into an okay song if I'd let it. But I was just so busy editing right out of the gate. And it's like, Kristy, you're overthinking it. Just stop it. And I think a lot of young writers probably do that a lot too.
Well, probably think of it like, John Lennon or Bob Dylan. They had plenty of band songs.
Yeah, we all do. Everybody has a song or two in their catalog. They're like, wow. Wish that. I don't know that I'm happy about having my name on that one.
Well, so what might be more important to you? Do you think it's lyrics, or do you think it's the piano, the musicality of it?
I think it's the marriage, you know. I mean, you can have a great lyric, but if you don't have the music that'll enhance that lyric, or if you don't have a lyric that'll enhance that music, there, you know, then one's a poem and one's an instrumental, you know, but there's a way to write it to where they really complement and strengthen each other. And that's my goal, is to whatever the lyric is the music matches it and it enhances it, you know. So I would have to say it's the coupling of the two of them in this perfect union kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Um, and you also are kind of a side top. So you started, you talked about musicians and this whole thing. You started Triad Musicians Matter.
I did.
And
Back in 2013, I was very aware that I was one of the few musicians that could afford health insurance. But, you know, most of them, you know, they're out touring and doing house concerts and, you know, gigging, but you don't get rich doing that, not on an indie level. And so, but what I found is, you know, you put on a fundraiser, who are the first ones to show up to play free of charge? Those musicians. And so I thought, you know, we need to have something in place to where we're not scrambling to do a fundraiser for somebody. If something comes up, or they have an accident, or they can't gig because they broke their arm, or, you know, or they got, you know, a horrible, you know, diagnosis. So yeah, so 2013, I founded and funded Triad Musicians Matter. And that's exactly what it is. I kind of based it on kind of the Red Cross. I also was doing disaster teams with the Red Cross. And I didn't realize, nor may you, audience, that like on a house fire, the Red Cross has the ability to fund people for like 3 days with clothing and shelter. I didn't know that. I thought all the Red Cross did were blood drives. I kid you not, I was that ignorant. But I didn't know that they did that. And so I kind of based it on that model that, you know, okay, Triad musicians can come in quickly and, you know, get people on their feet for maybe a couple of days to where they can have they're not in panic mode right out of the gate, and they have maybe a couple of days to pull it together and try to put a plan in place, you know, going forward. So that's kind of where the idea came from, and that's what its job is that it's kind of there to swoop in. We can get this, you know, our board is small, our review board is small, our board of directors is small. We can get decisions made pretty quickly as far as what we can, you know, allow, you know, how much we can allow per, you know, musician, and help them at least get on their feet for a couple of days, you know, 2 or 3 days. Like I said, enough for them to, you know, figure out what some of the other resources are for them to put in place. So, and that's been really, really, really gratifying, and I think we've helped a lot of musicians in the area, and that's made me very proud.
How many musicians do you think you've helped since?
I would say I think it was around 19, and then this year when COVID hit, as the board and I were talking about what to put in place for musicians, Arts Greensboro came through, and man, they had already been on it, put it together, had the application. I mean, they did an amazing job. So I approached the board and said, we need to make a donation to them, because they're already doing what we've talked about doing. They've got it in place. You know, how do y'all feel about that? And so everybody in the board unanimously agreed to give them a chunk and give them a good donation, and to help go, because musicians were just, you know, were filing into their applications as well. And we just thought, you know, rather than split it up and confuse people, let's just funnel it into Arts Greensboro, because they had done an amazing job of getting stuff up and running really quickly. I give a lot of credit to them. They're awesome. Awesome, right. Awesome.
Because this was a way for your organization to raise money for artists because they can't gig and do all the other things.
They can't gig. They can't gig. They can't play. I mean, the whole, when we started looking at applications, a lot of them were like Greensboro Symphony guys. And we didn't even think about that. We're thinking about pop people and country and blues and gigs. And it's like, well, of course, the symphony, they can't play right now. So it really knocked the artist community for a loop. It was rough. It still is. I mean, there's some people that are doing, some minimal gigs outside, but still, but here now we're looking at another surge. So I don't know that would be, recommended. So who knows? It's a tough time for art. It's a tough time for everybody. Let's be honest. It's just a tough time for teachers. I don't know how they're doing it. Nurses, health workers, you guys, I don't know how y'all are doing it. I mean, it's just an extraordinarily difficult time for so many people, And then again, I'm also inspired by the courage and creativity of, some people who have been placed in these ridiculous, crazy circumstances and have come up with amazingly creative ideas and creative ways to do their job or do a better job. I mean, it's just amazing. But yeah, I've got it easy compared to teachers and parents with kids at home and homeschooling. Oh my God, my kids would have been, they would not have been served well if I had to teach them. But yeah, it's an extraordinary time. Woo, hats off to you guys, man.
So I was talking about your song earlier, and I meant to ask you, what was your reaction when everything, I'm going to tell you mine, I just remember it started, and then they started with the masks, and this thing hit, and it was like, okay, this is another, H1N1 or however, Ebola, this will blow over, right? And then all of a sudden I walked down Elm Street in Greensboro, and like everything was just shut down. And I was getting email alerts that like the governor just shut everything down, and like Elm Street was like a ghost town. And that was so weird. I don't know, what was your perspective?
I think I just saw it coming. I mean, I'm a news junkie, sadly. So, yeah, I just, I kept looking and listening and reading and watching, and numbers, they were not going in the right direction, and so, and I was looking at what was happening abroad and what they were doing. I mean, when Italy, oh my God, that first spike, that was the saddest thing I've ever seen. I mean, that freaking country just shut down.
It was like the worst, I think.
It was horrible. So, so I watched them, and I thought, I don't see anybody making noises that it's going to be any different coming over here. And plus, I think we have enough people to where I think it came at a time where there was a lot of distrust anyway, which didn't help, but that's the reality of where we were. And so I don't think that helped, because instead of having, a unified, excuse me, what am I trying to say? Unified response, I think everybody kind of, decided to, go their own way with it. And I think that hurt. So, I mean, like I said, I don't think that's anybody's fault. I just think we had a very distrustful air to begin this freaking thing. So I think it's probably slowed down our progress, and it's probably slowed down our response time, which is a shame. But, I don't know that there could have been any way to avoid that. That's just where we were, So, but it's extraordinary, my heart breaks for the small stores and the mom and pop stores and it's just, like I said, nobody's ever seen the likes of this, and hopefully we won't ever, but hopefully we'll have a better idea of what to do, if nothing else, but yeah, this has been bad. It's been really hard on everybody.
Yeah, this is a really odd time.
Mm-hmm. Very odd time.
But would you maybe want to play something? It's up to you.
Well, I can try. My back may be to you. what do I look like up here? Hi. Can you hear it if I sing over it? He found some socks. Don't we do that one?
You are good.
He found some socks. She chose his tie. When he left for work that morning, he was just another guy going to work. He'd have to fly out to a meeting in LA, so she had kissed him twice goodbye. Little did she know she'd kissed a hero, though he'd always been one in her eyes. But when faced with certain death, he said a prayer and took a breath and led an army of true angels in us. Little did she know she'd kissed a hero, though he'd always been an angel in her eyes. Putting others first, it's true, that's what heroes always do. And now he doesn't need a pair of wings to fly. The phone had rung. His voice was calm. Before he could tell her anything, she knew something was wrong. I love you so. Last words he said. She said, I love you too. And then the phone went dead. Little did she know she'd kissed a hero, though he'd always been one in her eyes. But when faced with certain death, he'd said a prayer and took a breath and led an army of true angels in the sky. Little did she know she'd kissed a hero, though he'd always been an angel in her eyes. Putting others first, it's true, that's what heroes always do. And now he doesn't need a pair of wings to fly. Now he doesn't need a pair of wings to fly.
Oh man. I'm glad you wrote about that, because that is going to be one of those, I hate to say, one of those little known stories that's going to get lost in in maybe another, it's going to be one of those things that's not as well talked about as that flight. It's not as brought up as everything else, and everything else is just as bad, but it kind of gets lost in the muck. You know what I mean? I feel that. At least I feel that every time it's every anniversary, it's one of those ones that's not as much talked about. So they really had to. You really had to. They were really doing something when they had to do something on that plane. So.
You believe it?
And you'd never think, every day you get up, I mean, you have no idea what's happening with your day.
Well, I'd like to think that everybody can be a hero. I think everybody, given the right circumstances, I just have to. I have to. That's my faith in humanity. I think everybody, could be a hero, but I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a hard one, I'd like to think, that everybody could be, but I don't know. That took an enormous amount of courage, you know, an enormous amount of courage.
Yeah, that was a rough day. I was about 12 years old and I was living in New Jersey when that happened.
Wow. Wow.
And my dad took us to um, this high part of where we could see across the in New Jersey where we could see it, and it was they let us out of school early, and
Yeah.
so that was something else.
That's wild. At one point, I started getting letters. I started getting emails going, "Hi, my name is Billy, and my favorite line of the song is, now he doesn't need wings to fly." And then I got another, "Hi, my name is Nancy, and my favorite line of the song is, she picked his tie." And I got about 20 of these, and I was like, this is so odd. And all of a sudden, I got this email going, and I cannot remember what her real name was, because I did a book and changed everybody's name, so now I'm real confused. But she was like, "Hi, my name is Mrs. Barrett, and you're probably wondering, I'm sure you got a lot of emails from children talking about their favorite line of the song." And she said, "I just wanted to let you know that I'm a teacher in New Jersey, and I've been using your song as a grieving tool for the children. And I asked them to write you, having no idea that, number one, you would write every one of them back." Because I wrote every single person back that ever emailed me. And it was so sweet. But yeah, they were I got a lot of emails from teachers. But she had asked the children, "What is your favorite, line out of the song?" And I thought, oh my gosh. Because she said, "We watched the towers burn from across the river." And I was like, oh geez. What an extraordinary time. I tell you. Gonna get better, right?
Yeah.
we're in COVID. It's gonna get better, right? Oh my gosh. I tell you.
Yeah, this is some weird times that we're living in. But it's amazing that people, you're writing that story, that song, because it blew my mind that this is going to be, was it last year? I mean, there's kids that are graduating high school now that have no
I
concept of
know.
what happened.
Isn't that amazing? I know it's amazing to me that I don't know. They weren't even born, and it's like, oh my gosh. And of course, in 20 years, they'll say this about, a baby just being born never went through COVID. So, geez almighty. I guess everybody has their times that were just like, come on, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
But that was just so wicked, and so just desperately sad,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah. This is a good one. You had done one with the Healing Blues Project.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about the Healing Blues Project, because I remember
That was very cool. Ted Emmeroff, I think is his name, and he was kind of the spearhead of this project. And Dave Fox, I don't know if Dave was part of spearheading through this project or was just hugely involved. I think he might have been. Anyway, they had invited me to be a part of it, and what we were doing was they would match homeless people with musicians, songwriters, and then we would write their stories or write with them, or but just combine their story with our ability to tell stories, and then that's the way we did it. So it was real interesting because a very wide variety of songs came out of that project. Some people wrote literally blues songs about like the necklace around the guy's neck that he always took and where he got it from, and he had a whole story connected to it. And I got my guy's name was Isham Wardlow, and I asked him, he was a younger guy, and I said, "Hey Isham, do you like, do you play an instrument? Do you like a particular instrument?" And he was like, "No." And I said, "Okay, Do you like to sing? And he was like, no. I was like, well, And I said, well, and he said, well, so I write. And I went, oh, you write? Oh, that's awesome. That, and so after a while, we chatted and stuff. And I said, would you be comfortable if I read your writings? And he said, yeah, that'd be great. And I said, well, I think that might, maybe give us some ideas of what to write. So they were all essay, but it was really cool. So I started reading his writing. I took it home that day because I said, Isham, if you don't mind, I'm just going to take it home with me and just kind of read through it. And he said, no, that'd be great, I mean, yeah, he wasn't a young kid. I mean, he's probably, 18, 19, early 20s maybe even. And they were just very thoughtful, and it was very interesting because what was very obvious to me after I read a bunch of his writing was that he and I write for the same reasons. He was writing about how I don't understand this world. I don't understand what's going on. I'm hurt. I don't know where to put it. Just, it was completely universal, and so when we got back together, I just took his words and I just added a little bit of form, tweaked a little bit so it would, get into a song form and rhyme a little bit. But I said, Isham, I think I've got our song, I said, and I got to tell you, my friend, I said, you know what? You and I write for the same reasons. And he got such a kick out of that. He's like, really? And I said, oh, yeah. And so I played it for him, and he was really pleased. And then, of course, there was a big healing blues concert. And I think everything that we made, either through sales of the CD or tickets to the show, all went to, I think it was, is it the inner, it's the resource center. What, yeah, IRC? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think all the proceeds went to that. And that's a great program, But that was a really, really, really cool thing to be a part of. That was neat, I've lost track of him. Last time I saw him, he came to the concert when all the musicians played all the songs that we had been given and worked with with the homeless community. And he was like, he'd got an apartment, he had a girlfriend. So things are looking up for him. I was thrilled, just thrilled. But it's a sweet song, But anyways, that was a really, really rewarding project. I was glad I was part of that.
Well, that's really cool. We're coming up on probably about an hour.
Are we really? How time flies.
Would you maybe want to send us off with one if you, So I Write, or whatever you want to?
Let me
It's up to
see.
you.
So I write, I think I need a lyric sheet though. It's been a while. I'm trying to think of, let's see.
If you want to do another one, that's fine too.
All right, let me think of it. I know, okay, all right, I'll give you a little bit about this song called Kick Down the Door. It's upbeat, it's up-tempo, yay! No more sad song. I wrote this with a girlfriend, one of the first women I co-wrote with when I started commuting in Nashville. Her name was Georgia Middleman. She had a record deal with Giant Records, and this was her first single. No, excuse me. Was it her first single? I think it was her first single. If not, it was her second single. At any rate, she charted, it was moving up Billboard, and then the record label closed their doors. But she went on to do very, very well. She's an amazing writer. She's a dear friend to this day. She married another gifted, amazing writer. And then the two of them hooked up with a gentleman, and they started a trio called Blue Sky Riders. And I don't think you're too young for this guy. But anyway, it was Georgia, her husband Gary, and a gentleman named Kenny Loggins. Now, I don't know if you ever know Kenny Loggins, but so they had that little trio for a while. So she's doing just fine. But anyway, this was a song that she and I wrote about always falling in love with the wrong person, the bad boy, and the good guys we just completely overlook, and how that's so terrible. But anyway, so this is called Kick Down the Door.
Happens every time.
Yeah, it does. Jimmy always brings me a bottle of red wine. Tommy's always wanting me to be his Valentine. Sam leaves little messages and always brings a rose when he drops by. Well, they're very sweet, these gentlemen, knocking at my heart for me to let them in. So why am I still holding out for more? I want somebody to kick down the door, let himself and sweep me off my feet and throw my heart into a tailspin. Chemistry is not polite. I'm waiting for my Mr. Right to kick down the door. My friends always tell me I'm asking for too much. Why can't I have the moon and stars at my Midas touch? I want electricity, good old-fashioned passion in my life. Well, they say one day I'll settle down and build myself on solid ground. But there's only one thing I settle for. I want somebody to kick down the door, let himself and sweep me off my feet and throw my heart into a tailspin. Chemistry is not polite. I'm waiting for my Mr. Right to kick down the door. Kick down the door. Well, they say one day I'll settle down and build my house on solid ground. But there's only one thing I settle for. I want somebody to kick down the door, let himself and sweep me off my feet and throw my heart into a tailspin. Chemistry is not polite. I'm waiting for my Mr. Right to kick down the door. Kick down the door. Kick down the door. I realized halfway through my throat is completely hoarse. But anyway, it's that type of song. You can sing it any way you want to, I guess.
Thank you so much for being on. This has been fun.
Oh, I'm glad. Thank you for asking me. I appreciate you involving me in your endeavor. And yeah, I'm glad we finally pulled it off. It took a while,
Yes.
but I hope it was well worth the wait. Yay!
Yes.